Welcome to this week's energy series. We are talking about free will. Do you have it? Do you need it? Do we have it? We are Peyton, Corey, and myself, Yaila. We do weekly videos with different topics around it, surrounded with intuition, energy, and how those impact our daily life. So if those are topics that you like, definitely connect with us on each of our social media listed below. Like, subscribe, comment, share. We appreciate any and all support that you have. So kicking things off, talking about free will. How about you, Miss Corey? What are your thoughts on free will? Do you have it?
I've got it. Free will. My goodness. It was a long journey to free will. Free will is being able to live a life that you want to live, and making your own choices. And the generation that I was brought up in, there wasn't a lot of free will. Do as you're told, um, respect authority. And so, I know for me that, most of my life, my will was not able to be free. And however, free will is also, what we come down here on earth to experience is our own free will to make our own decisions, to do as we please, whether we want to learn the lesson or not learn the lesson. And, I didn't get it till a little bit later in life, just because that was what I was raised to not really have my own free will. The generational beliefs, that we're brought up in. But free will is being able to make your own choices. And, it started for me when I started doing this energy work, and realizing what energy was, how to work with energy, and that I had the power to do it. I really did. And so most of my life, I was just so sensitive. So having that free will to make my own choices in the lessons that I want to learn, the things that I want to do, to say no. No, I wasn't brought up to say no. But, I get to say no today because I have an understanding now of free will, which is it is my life and I get to choose what comes into my energy field, what goes out of my energy field, and live a life that is desirable to me. And that's been a huge shift in my life, is being able to have free will and realizing that actually I was born with free will. When I learned that, it was like, what? But I love this topic of free will and sovereignty. Are we going to talk about sovereignty as well along with that? Sovereignty. Sovereignty. Well, it kind of goes along with that free will that I was talking about. That sovereignty is, every morning in my meditations, I say, I was taught, actually, it was by Kyle Gray. He took his angel course. Oh, love that man. But he taught us, and I've carried that. I've taken it on. Is I am the keeper of my mind and of my body. Where there is love, fear is a stranger. Love is here in me now. And for me, I carry that love frequency. And to me, that is being sovereign, because I finally been able to be the keeper of my mind and of my body. And sovereignty is being able to have authority over yourself and not let the outside forces, so to speak, be the authority over me. And that was so freeing. It was so freeing when I started this journey learning about energy work, and that I could be free. I mean, I've always been rebellious, my nature is rebellious. So if you tell me what to do, I want to do the opposite. Um, but I got to do it with my choice and not have to be rebellious, but to own my space and to own my, what I want to do in my own life. So, Yaila, how about you?
Thank you, Corey. So when I think of free will, I look at free will. I've been questioning. I always used to say, yeah, we totally have free will. And the more I've been learning about free will and just kind of watching what's been going on with the world around us, what I've come to understand, your level of free will is actually determined by your level of consciousness. So how much are you tapped into the world around you? Because if you are living more in an unconscious state, meaning not practicing sovereignty, Corey was really great about explaining how sovereignty is really being in command of your body, your mind, and the actions that you take. So if you are truly a sovereign being, then you are acting in ways that are of empowerment versus out of fear or control. And looking at the world around us, many people can argue that we're not necessarily acting out of free will. We're acting out of fear that's been put into our space or to our mind. We're acting out of places where we have been controlled, whether it was from our upbringing, from our specific communities or religious groups that we're in, our schools that we go to, the governments that govern us around the world. There's times that we are impacted. Our free will is questioned because we've given our power, our sovereignty over to outside things. And so when I've been working on the energy work for myself and my students and my classes and my clients, my number one goal is teaching them discernment, discernment for the energies around them. So they are acting from more of a free will choice. They're taking actions that their heart and their higher self truly desires in this lifetime. When we talk about free will, sometimes things like destiny, those words kind of get intertwined with free will. Do we have free will, or are we destined to have certain things in our lifetime? And I've asked these questions, in my classes with myself. My students have asked, is it destined? Is it written in the stars? Is our life just completely planned out for us, and we are just, it's out of our hands? So looking at free will and destiny, I feel like our soul, the answers I've gotten, and this is for you to kind of look in for yourself of, where's your free will? Where's your consciousness to the energies around you? And were there certain things that felt destined? Were there certain people that were supposed to be in your life? Like soulmates or life experiences? Was that part of your soul's choice coming into this lifetime? I personally believe we wanted certain experiences because as our soul is growing and evolving, I believe being in a dimension here on earth which has dichotomy, right? Up and down, left and right and wrong. When we have these opposing experiences, we have new desires. There's new experiences that come through. And to me, that helps expand the universe. And so our soul didn't want to just come here for the highlights. Our soul wanted to experience it all. One of my favorite quotes from the movie Vanilla Sky is, "The sweet isn't as sweet without the sour." Would you know the sweetness of life unless you had other experiences? And when I think of free will and being able to have a conscious decision on what experiences you want, maybe you'll learn that you don't necessarily have to go through such a hard road anymore to experience the good. You can have a conscious choice to choose what experiences you want. And so for me, free will coincides to the level of consciousness that you have and that you are obtaining to have. So again, looking at, are you being controlled by, are you operating out of control or fear? Or are you operating out of your own heart, your own sovereign decisions? So these are really big questions that I always find interesting to ask myself and other people. And I love people's different interpretation when it comes to free will and choice. I feel like it's intertwined with There's desires that our soul wanted coming in here, but we always, again, where your conscious is at, we always have a choice in every single moment. The present moment is where we are at. The more you are clear in your conscious space in the present moment, the more you are acting out of your free will and aligning to your higher self. So alignment is, and probably my second favorite word after amusement. So, operating through life through amusement and alignment. So my practice in the energy work for myself was learning discernment. It was learning what controls were in my space running the show versus, what are those subconscious beliefs running the show versus what I thought was actually running the show. So it's a lifelong journey. I don't think you're ever fully achieved. It's something I work on every day. And I hope that you work on that for yourself to get more and more sovereignty and operate more and more out of your true desires, your true discernment, your true free will. So that's what I have to add to that. How about you, Peyton?
This is such a great topic. I have to say that free will is one of those ideas that I have heard from probably every one of my spiritual teachers. Every spiritual book I've read has been focused on how we are, one of our unalienable rights as humans and beings in this universe is our free will. And so this has become such an interesting topic over the past year, because I noticed that a couple of the teachers that I've followed for a long time and have always just really respected and resonated with have suddenly started to say there is no free will. And I know the first time I heard that, I went, wait, what? And it just kind of turned everything upside down, because I'm like, what is this? People who have always talked about free will have suddenly gone 180. And so it's been such a big topic that I've been thinking about over the past like 6 months or a year. What does this even mean? Do we really have free will? And I think that when this happens, one of the things that is going on is that maybe our understanding of free will as a collective is being upgraded. Because whenever I find that there's this big shift in how people are looking at a topic, I find that we're about to be indoctrinated or initiated into a new understanding. And I always think of it the way I learned about past lives. There was so much talk about it, and then all of a sudden the guides were like, there are no past lives, everything is now. And we're like, wait, what? And it turns out they're both correct. We're just looking at it from a higher consciousness perspective now, that we know that yes, we have had lives that are in the linear past, but that everything is happening now. So there's not a right or a wrong, but I think we're in the middle of kind of a renaissance on how we think about free will and what that really means for us. And so I've been thinking about free will a lot this past year, because as I started to kind of mull it over, I really didn't have a good understanding of what it meant for me in my life. And I started to realize that the one thing that was really strong in me when I thought about the idea of free will is that I didn't feel free. I looked around at all these rules in our society and the structures that we're bound by, and I started to go, how is that freedom? Because part of many of our spiritual awakening paths is that we start to see some of the control and manipulation and lack of integrity in our world. And I started to go, well, how is that free will? I didn't choose that. I didn't consciously choose corrupt institutions, organizations, whatever, maybe on the top of your mind. How is that mesh with this idea of free will? Because I didn't feel like I chose those things, yet I was bound by them. So I've been giving this topic so much thought lately. I'm like, well, what does free will really mean? Because we start to hear as we go through our awakening process that humanity has kind of been enslaved. And that was part of what we signed up for in coming into this earth game. And so I think understanding free will has become more important now than maybe ever, because we're starting to see we have choices in some of the things that we didn't think we could do anything about. And so when I started asking my guides, well, what does this really mean? Because it doesn't mean we can just go 100 miles an hour on the freeway because that's my free will. Our world doesn't really operate like that. So free will has to kind of mean something a little different. And so what I have kind of settled on for the moment as making sense for me with this feeling that it's all about to shift is choice in the moment. That in every moment, and you girls touched on this so beautifully, in the moment we have so many choices available to us. We can do certain things, we can go get a meal, we can have a glass of water, we can work out today or not work out today. So our life is filled with all these opportunities for choice. And so I'm kind of thinking that that's what free will means to me right now, is the choice that we have in our physical bodies at this moment. We can choose to control our energy, or we can choose to let our energy control us. We can choose to be nice to someone in a situation, or we can act out on that grumpiness that we've been feeling all week. And so I'm thinking that, what makes sense to me right now is that free will is our ability to choose in the moment as our human selves. Because someone said something to me recently about free will that really kind of got me thinking. They said, your higher self doesn't have free will. And I was like, wait, explain that to me? What do you mean by that? And they said, well, your higher self is kind of bound by the choices you are making every moment of your life, because your higher self isn't in the car on the freeway deciding whether you're going to go 100 miles an hour or go 50. Your higher self is going, oh God, I hope she doesn't go 100, while she's putting on mascara. But your higher self is kind of going along for the ride. And so I don't really know how that all plays out, but something about that kind of resonated with me, that maybe free will is something that we have as whatever you think of as our little egoic selves, our physical selves, but that at the higher dimensions, it probably means something a little different. So I don't know if our higher selves have free will or not. I know they're probably always steering us to make the right decision, to use our free will in a responsible way. But I think this topic just raises so many interesting questions. And the more I think about it, the more questions I have. So right now I'm going to go for, to me, free will means the choices we have in every moment. And that we want to, as Yaila was saying, we want to make the best choice we can from the most loving place that we can. And I think that the more we're in the present moment and the more we are in our heart, we're probably going to use our free will in a beneficial way and not do it out of our old traumas, not do it out of those unconscious beliefs that, we don't even realize are making decisions for us. And so I think it's a fascinating topic. And I certainly love to hear everyone's take on it, because I don't have all the answers on this one, or even half of the answers. So that's my thought on free will. And yeah, I always love to hear other opinions, because it just makes me think more about it and how I can be more loving in all of my choices. Because until we start to ask ourselves those questions, we don't realize how much we're on autopilot. And that's where we can give our free will away. We start to agree to things without consciously realizing that we are agreeing to things that maybe aren't in our best interest. So that's my 2 cents worth on free will.
I love this topic. I feel like we should do this topic again and bring in like other comments that we hear, because it's like you, Peyton, I'm always curious about it. I'm curious about people's take. And I've been hearing more and more lately too, that there is no free will, where we used to hear all the time, like, oh, it's your free will, free will. It's like, well, to what extent though, Anything else, Corey, you want to add as far as?
Well, I was, it's like, oh, we don't have free will. And of course, my head goes, yes, I do. I'm going to take it. It's my will. It's mine. It's mine. Yeah. I fought so hard to find out what it was. But Peyton, what about sovereignty? What do you think about sovereignty?
I kind of think of the two as being somewhat kind of connected, because I think it goes to what you were saying, Corey. When I think of sovereignty, and whenever I think of them or work with like my intentions or my manifesting, I kind of lump both of those together. Because to me, sovereignty, and this has been so hard for me as a chronic people pleaser, to stand in my truth, especially as a light worker and a starseed whose position has not always been mainstream. to actually stand in my truth and speak what is authentic to me has been a long time coming. That has not been something that was easy for me, because like you were saying, Corey, it's not how I was raised. I was raised, there is a path, you follow the path, you do not deviate from the path. No one cares what you think about the path. And so to me, sovereignty was starting to say, no, that's not my choice. That doesn't feel good to me. And honestly, that is only something I have started to really learn in the past couple of years since I started studying energy work and meeting some of you incredible ladies who are farther down this path than me. That, you know, sovereignty for me was learning to who I was, which I didn't even know. I had an entire career doing something that never felt like me from day one. And so sovereignty was learning that it was okay to be me. And it was okay if people didn't agree with that or think that was what I should be doing. But I find that sovereignty is something I have to practice all the time. It's not something that you learn it and you're done, especially if you have any tendencies toward being a people pleaser or an empath. It's something that can take some work. And so for me, sovereignty was saying, no, that's not right for me. It can be right for you, and I respect that, but that is not my truth. And so to me, it goes a little bit with free will, because it's that, like you guys were saying, it's that willingness to say no. And like you, Corey, I was never a no girl. No was not part of my training. And, you know, I find that it has become my favorite word. I may have overcompensated a little. So to me, sovereignty was having to be okay with other people not approving of me. And that was really hard. That was not something that was easy for me. But to me, that's when you feel sovereign. And once I've started to learn that a little bit, I feel more me than I ever have before. But it's an act of bravery for me every day. It does not come naturally as an empath or a people pleaser. So
I so
Yeah.
relate to that, Peyton. Oh my gosh, because similar, right, Corey? Because growing up being a people pleaser, I definitely grew up in a household of like, you know, just rules. That's kind of how we grew up. Like there was a lot of rules, and you know, speak when you're spoken to, and you're allowed to do this and time. And then I'm an Aquarius, so I have this huge rebel, stubborn side to me. Thank you. So I started practicing my no's, and I feel like you watching this video, please say collective no with us right now so you can start practicing and stepping into your sovereignty. Because I was that person where my higher guide was watching myself go down that freeway at 100 miles an hour putting on mascara. So, I was one that moved out of my house when I was still in high school. Like I would call myself out of school. Like I was rebel for a while, and then I kind of had to ring it back in, and I'm still learning that balance of honoring my heart and, am I operating out of that old trauma or fear? So I feel like it's gonna be a lifelong journey, but my biggest takeaways when I think about free will, sovereignty, destiny, is are you in alignment in the present moment? Are you choosing from your highest consciousness, from your heart, in alignment in the present moment?
Yeah, I love that. Are you choosing from your heart, or are you choosing from a past trauma?
yeah.
That sovereignty is, again, we were just talking about flow.
Mhm.
When we allow that moment to moment, being in that moment and making that choice. And instead of having to talk our way into making a choice that we really don't want to make, versus, always being in that moment. And the flow is allowing that flow to say, no, thank you. No, thank you. And I totally get it. I too, people pleaser. Come on. Being in the film industry, a makeup artist, it is 100% people pleaser, and sovereignty isn't a part of that at all. Do as you're told. Doesn't matter what I love it, Peyton. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you want to do. This is the deal. And I'm actually grateful. I had that little rebel inside of me that was like, all right, but doesn't mean I have to like it, or this doesn't seem right to me, but at least at least I knew that that little rebel helped me to know the difference between it didn't seem right. I'm choosing to do it. That's not sovereignty, but because that's just what you did, versus blindly going into allowing somebody else to make decisions for you, letting the outside world make decisions for you and not being sovereign in your space, like Peyton was saying. No, thank you. That doesn't, fine. If you want to do it, that's great. No, I don't think I'm going to do that. That is, it too has taken me a long time to get to that place. But boy, pleasing myself. Imagine that. Doing what feels good to me and coming from your heart space. There's a lot of talk right now too in the spiritual community about it's the most important thing to do is live in your heart, make decisions from your heart. The heart is the most important thing. And I was taught to ignore my heart my whole life. So that too is a practice for me, is, am I making this decision, a sovereign decision from my heart to make that decision? So it's very, this is a great topic. We're going to have another video on this one. Because it's changing all the time right now, right? Everything is changing, right? And that astrology, that Uranus planet, all those aspects, fast moving, change here, change that. And being sovereign in your space is helping so much. So it's like, hopping on top of the buffalo and riding through the storm, as opposed to not hopping on the buffalo and letting yourself just get all by not being sovereign and knowing what you stand for. What is your truth? What will you stand for yourself? Yeah.
And that is why I'm so grateful for energy work, because energy work and the things that we talk about in all of our videos are what opened this door for me, because I did not realize how much I was using my free will to act from trauma and to act from unconscious beliefs, things I would have sworn on a Bible I did not do, did not think. I completely did, and I couldn't see it. And it wasn't until I found energy work and the spiritual path that I started to see the distinction between those two. Because you can't use your sovereignty if you don't know you're acting from something unconscious. If you're acting from trauma, you just can't see it. You can't see what your authentic truth is, or at least I couldn't. And so for me, it was energy work that I am so grateful for, because it helped me crack that door open. I couldn't have gotten in my heart if I tried before, because there was too much trauma. And so to really, I think, use our free will and stand in our sovereignty, knowing that that is a choice, is the first step. And to me, clearing out that old trauma was necessary for me to even see this as an option, or even know what this was talking about. So I'm so grateful that we all found this work and that we're sharing these techniques, because it's a game changer.
It is. That made me all teary-eyed, you saying that, because when you said I'm so grateful for energy work, that really hit my heart. And I too am so grateful for coming upon this energy work and being with you ladies and finding, like-minded energy workers or people who are aware of energy. That really just hit me. Thanks, Peyton. No, that really did. It just hit me. It just really hit my heart, because I too am just so grateful. It's changed my life and the lives of the people that are around me. I know, just by tuning into the energy and doing this work, it has just changed my life and everybody's lives that are in my life. Yeah.
Think where we were just 5 years ago, girls.
Dude.
Think about that, how much we have changed.
Dude, I was so different 2 months ago. Are you kidding me? 5 years ago? Whew, I probably have videos somewhere from when I was a health coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's this journey is pretty amazing, and I'm very excited to see what we're stepping into as more and more. I feel like we're being called as a collective to be more sovereign or reconnect to our sovereignty.
And
So
free will, actually,
yeah, and learn
for
what
the
that
moment.
is. Because speaking of the energy stuff too, it's not just about old traumas, right? Like old upbringing. I think of our memories as filters, right? So if you have filters from what your parents wanted for you, your family, whatever, all these different filters that you have and how you operate and how you see the world through them. But it's also connected. Energy work connects to everything. So we have different choices and thoughts and beliefs that manifest as things in our body, whether it's certain types of diseases or aches and pains. So, there's so many levels that this shows up into our lives that we don't even realize until we start actually clearing away this trauma, these memories, these filters, these, veils, however you want to speak to it. But I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole on this one for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause us here and we'll re-tap at that. It's a really long upload for this video. But, we hope you enjoyed this conversation with us on free will, and we encourage you to look and see what that means for you. And again, if you'd like to reach out to any of us, our information is below. Feel free to connect with us. Again, we love your support, your likes, your shares, your comments, and we love to have you part of our conversations and with our videos. So we will see you next week. Thank you.